welcome to our second session of Effective Leadership Workshop series. Before we begin, just a few quick rules on how to be best make the Zoom more effective. So first, please mute yourself while speaking, except while speaking, sorry, and request you to keep your video on at all times as it really aids in the activity of the session. We'd also like you to use the virtual chat option, the chat option if you have any questions that you would want to ask, just so that we can go through it in an orderly fashion. If you'd like to ask a question verbally, please do raise your hand and please wait until you're acknowledged. We will be using breakout rooms today, so please be mindful that if you do leave the breakout room, it's very easy to get back in and we will be there to guide you if needed. And finally, please do use the reactions to give us feedback whenever it's appropriate. Just before we start, we'd like to start off with exactly what we did or where we are in the session and in the series. So the last session was led by Mr. Jaggu on business excellence. And as you would expect it was excellent. We spoke about how excellence is an unending journey of trying to improve and best our own selves. We learned about how focusing on the values will introduce a virtuous cycle of positive attitudes and behaviors that are self-reinforcing to build excellence. We learned about what companies and organizations stand out as true leaders in their segment, concluding the session by talking through some models, focusing especially on the Baldrige model that helps improve processes embedded in organizations. Today, we will delve deeper on the topic of leadership. Specifically, we'll learn about the styles of leadership. To help us on this journey, we have with us Dr. Sanjay Mahalingam. Dr. Sanjay Mahalingam is a proficient academic and educator at the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning and a trained life coach. While his areas of expertise include quality management, operations management, supply chain management, and transformational leadership, Dr. Sanjay is widely regarded as a gifted communicator, a skill that he has consciously employed in transmitting the teachings of our beloved spiritual master, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Passionate about self-transformation and intrinsic human potential, Dr. Sanjay's primary methodology draws upon traditional wisdom to solve contemporary problems. According to him, leadership is all about influence, and influence flows from personal mastery through self-awareness. Mentoring Swami's students, turning their snacks inside out, and facilitating an environment of outer productivity fueled by inner joy remains his abiding love and life's delight. Among the many awards he has received, he cherishes the most the feedback he receives from students and workshop participants year after year. Welcome, Dr. Sanjay, and thank you for being here. Over to you.
Om Shri Sai Ram. Offering my loving salutations to the divine lotus feet of Swami. Good evening to all of you. A warm welcome to the second session. If I may request some of you to put on your videos, it's just slightly better to, you feel you're in a classroom. If that's okay. If it's too much trouble, don't bother. So today's session is on leadership styles. That's the title of the session. What we'll be doing today is we will be taking a small peek into the wide ocean-like academic world of leadership. We'll look at some of the more prominent and popular styles that have evolved with academic research over the years. We'll have a brief discussion, our reflections on them. And then in the end, I will present to you a generic model, which is a result of my own research, inner work, contemplation, meditation, and I have freely borrowed from certain sources also. So a generic model to empower you for very, very powerful and transformational leadership. So that's the gist of what we'll be trying to cover today. Every 10-15 minutes, I will take a small pause and I will throw the house open. And anybody has any questions, you could raise your hand and you could ask your questions. Don't put it in the chat. You could just simply ask. That pause will be only for 3 or 4 minutes. We'll just take probably a question or two and then move on. And in the end, we'll have a longer Q&A session. All right. So really, the history of the world is really just the history of a few very influential people. That's what Swami Vivekananda is, generally quoted as having said. If you see the history of, say, the last 3,000 years of the world, it's really just the history of about 10,000 people, opinion makers, authority figures, powerful people, wealthy people, divine beings. That's why leadership as a phenomenon is so important to study and understand, because leaders move the world. Leaders rather move life, So that's what makes leadership such an important phenomenon to study, and it has been actively studied for the last 200 years through empirical academic research. Let me just start with, just to warm you up, a few quotes. Now, what's important to know in these quotes is that not all the people whose quotes I'm sharing are exemplars of perfect leadership. In fact, some of them are even slightly controversial figures. But be that as it may, there is also one thing we need to understand, that nobody is perfect, and a leader with all his or her flaws could still be exemplar in a certain dimension of leadership. So just to begin with Swami's quote, Swami once said, a leader is one with integrity, character, and by character he meant purity, patience, and perseverance. That's how Swami defines character, and a social consciousness. Swami also said, leader is one with a balance of individual and national character. And then once Swami said, discourse to students, only the divine can be a leader. Lao Tzu, the famous Chinese philosopher, the person who found the philosophy of Taoism, the author of Tao Te Ching, he said the leader is best when people barely know he exists, and when his work is done, his aim is fulfilled, people say, we did it ourselves. Bernard Montgomery, very famous army general, the British army officer, one of the most decorated generals of the Second World War. The leadership is capacity and the will to rally people to a common purpose together with the character that inspires confidence and trust. Drucker, generally considered the father of modern management, one of the most original thinkers of this century. Effective leadership is not about making speeches or being liked. It's about results, not just attributes. Scott Burkham, author, speaker. I think leadership comes from integrity, that you do whatever you ask others to do. I think there are non-obvious ways to lead, just by providing a good example as a parent, friend, a neighbor. The point I want to make here is leadership is not just something that transforms the world, or gives you an extremely quarter-on-quarter profit for a business. Leadership can be even in very small areas of life. Between you and your friendship with a friend, you can be a leader. You can be a leader in your relationship with your partner or spouse. You can be a leader in your neighborhood. You could be a leader in your community, right? Life decides what's going to be the extent of the game you play. Everybody will not become a Mahatma Gandhi or a Martin Luther King Jr., and they don't even need to, right? So leadership as a phenomenon has certain attributes which make you a powerful leader, and you exercise that power and influence in your scope that life presents you. So because when we talk of leader, automatically our focus goes outside as to what has been achieved outside. That achievement depends on various factors, but leadership as a phenomenon is more subjective. Jack Welch, the famous CEO of G. Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. Andre Malraux, a French author, to command is to serve, nothing more, nothing less. And finally, another very influential speaker and author, American speaker and author, the challenge of leadership is to be strong but not rude, kind but not weak, bold but not a bully, thoughtful but not lazy, humble but not timid, proud but not arrogant, humorous but without folly. So it's the middle path. So as the Indian scriptures say, as thin as a razor's edge. So there are innumerable theories and innumerable ways of looking at leadership. So we will need to evolve a definition that we will follow for this presentation, so that all of us can be on the same ground. About 100, 200 years back, there was this great man theory. That was the first real academic theory of leadership in the early 19th century. Then there were trait theories and behavioral theories, contingency theories, and now research is moving to frontier areas like genetic factors underpinning leadership. So there's been a lot of research, and leadership is an evolving discipline. And the concept of leadership will continue to develop. Each theory has a slightly different approach to leadership and different ways of defining leadership. So for the purpose of this presentation, we will focus on a single definition. And that definition is: leadership is an influence relationship maturing into joyful willingness among leaders and followers who intend real changes and outcomes that reflect their shared purpose. So this is the definition we will follow. Some of the key elements of this definition is: leadership is an influence relationship. It is an influence relationship because leadership is a result of a dynamic interplay of the interests of the leader and the led. They both have their own interests, and they both are trying to all the time influence each other and to bring behavioral transformations in each other, and neither is free from the influence of the other. So it's a constant interplay of dynamic interests and a constant mutual influencing. So it's an influence relationship maturing into the highest level of influence is joyful willingness. When you submit to that influence joyfully, so that's the pinnacle of an influence relationship. And there are, of course, leaders and followers, and they intend real changes. So powerful leadership is not intending to maintain the status quo. It is always intending to take life forward. So there is some form of real changes that is desired, and that should be a shared purpose. At least to a certain extent, the leaders and the followers must have a shared purpose. They should have an idea of moving in the same direction. So this is how we will define leadership for this session. I sent you a readout before this session. How many did you all read it? Because then we can move a little faster through this section of the slide and come to our reflections, which is what is more important. So these are the 8 kinds of leadership. Again, many researchers have contributed to these 8 styles, lots of them. In fact, about 7 or 8 researchers have over almost 100 years of academic research has given you these 8 styles of leadership. Most of them are pretty obvious, so I'm not really going to go into the depth of each one of them. I'm assuming that you have had the chance to read the readout that was given. So when we talk of democratic leadership, exactly what it sounds like. Decisions are made democratically. Autocratic is the inverse. The leader makes decisions without taking inputs. Laissez-faire, as the French word means, hands off. Strategic leadership, it's again the manager is at the leader is at the is at the border of short-term success and long-term vision, and he's pushing his followers to accept his long-term vision for long-term success. Transformation leadership, again very a very powerful form of leadership. Uh, Again, I'm just assuming you all read it. Transactional, it's really rewards and punishments. Coaching style of leadership, I know this style well. I'm a trained life coach. Coaching style of leadership assumes that the one you are leading has all the answers. You have nothing really to contribute except to channelize that energy in a more constructive way. So it's a very beautiful way of leadership where you already assume, like how we assume in our Indian spirituality and philosophy, that everybody is already divine. The coach already assumes that the follower is already perfect. He's already inspired. He already has all the answers, and I have really no answers to give him except that to help him to clarify his or her own mind, give constant feedback, and and have a conversation to uncover the brilliance that is already hidden in the follower. So that is actually the essence of a coaching style of leadership. Servant style of leadership, this was Swami's favorite. This found maximum mention in Swami's discourses, either explicitly or implicitly. In 2003 October, one Swami asked me, I gave a talk. It was a group presentation on Grama Seva. I remember there were 3 other professors with me, and after the talk, we went to Swami, and Swami asked me, what do you want? And I said, Swami, I want to serve you always. And Swami was taken aback. He said, serve me always? No, 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 no. I will serve you always. Swami said, I am your servant. And Swami uses exact phrase. And 4 of us, we in unison, we said, no, Swami, how can you say that? Swami said, no, that is the truth. And we said, no, 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 Swami, no, no. We tried to, argue with Swami. No, no, Swami, we are your servants. You are a master. Swami said, no, I am your servant. You are not. I am your servant, and I will serve you always. Swami was insistent, so it's the great example of servant leadership. What's really servant leadership is simply this, that the leader's commitment to serve the led is absolute, total, and non-negotiable. That to lead is to serve. And my commitment to you as a follower is complete, total. This is a very age-old Indian concept, actually even an Asian concept. We've always identified with service as a form of leadership. Our Prime Minister Modi calls himself Pradhan Sevak, or the primary servant, and the bureaucracy in India, and I'm sure it's a British system really, they call public servants. So it's a very old Indian tradition. The beauty about servant leadership is that it gives you unhindered access to other styles of leadership. When the led are sure that their highest interest is in the mind of the leader, and the leader's commitment is to serve you, they are more forgiving of your flaws, they are more accepting of your idiosyncrasies, and as a leader, you gain an access to all the other 7 forms of leadership. We wouldn't have minded if Swami was autocratic. If Swami said, do this, you would say, how could Swami say this? We would not say, oh, Swami is so undemocratic, simply because we know that our interests are highest in his mind, and we have that faith. So that gives the leader an access to a wide array of leadership styles and methodologies. Also, it's very important to understand here that none of these 8 styles is superior, intrinsically superior to the other, right? All these styles have a role to play. Everything depends on the situation. For example, if you're dealing with a very capable and mature team, then probably you go for a democratic style. If you are dealing with a team with a demonstrated track record of accomplishment, you'd probably go for laissez-faire, hands off. When goals are long-term, say 5, 10 years plus, probably you would go for a strategic leadership. Imagine you are on a time crunch, success is critical, and you have to get results fast. There are situations like that. You need to complete a project. Non-completion can be very costly. Then you might even go for an autocratic form of leadership where you just lay out the goals and simply expect the followers to follow. And when the goal is, for example, to maximize human potential and accomplishment, transformation or coaching style of leadership might work. So we need to understand that it is a very dynamic situation. It's not that one is definitely better, and which one to use, which style to use when. How do we come to that maturity? That we'll see a little later in the presentation. I'm also allow me to be a little immodest here. I know humility is a virtue, but allow grant me the just indulge me. I am all the time talking to students, one-on-one, in groups, and dozens of students every batch. So as you all know, I'm an assistant professor in Swami's University, and Swami told us teachers that these children are your children. Treat them as how you would treat your own children. So they all the time they come to, they discuss everything, the most intimate aspects of their life, which they would not be willing to discuss even with their own parents or friends. And they come up with all these kinds of things, and we're all the time coaching them, training them, helping them, mentoring them. And I've always generally got this feedback that, sir, talking to you is so helpful. As I said, allow me to be a little immodest, and I have always thought of what works. And so I asked some of the students, I generally ask, so why do you come and talk to me? What is it that you find appealing in coming to me and sharing your concerns? So often I have got this feedback is that they said, sir, when we are with you, we get the feeling that your commitment to us is total. Which means when I am talking, and it is true. So for example, when I am talking to a student, at that moment, I have no commitment to the university. I have no commitment, dare I say, even to Swami. At that moment, my commitment is absolute, total, and complete only to that individual who is sitting in front of me. He, it's always a he because it's a men's campus. He is my world at that time, and he is my Swami. And other than him, I know nothing and I care about nothing. And his well-being is all that matters. For example, if a student comes and tells me he broke a rule. So, oh, how could you break a rule? This is Swami's institute. So, the commitment shifts to the institute and to Swami. And suddenly the student is left high and dry. So, this is also a form of servant leadership where you are there to serve, and your commitment to your followers' well-being is absolutely foremost. We will go to other style. So yeah, so we have seen all this. Okay, let me just take a quick pause. Are there any questions? Anybody has any questions? So you could ask me now. Anybody, any questions? Otherwise, we can move on if there are no questions. It's not necessary to have questions, only if you have.
Yeah, I have one question on the democratic leadership.
Yes.
So, well, in my company, one of the job position was a manager, and we interviewed for that position. And the candidate who came for that position told us that he's democratic kind of leadership. That's how he applies it. Then my manager rejected that candidate, saying, leader being democratic is not right, because leaders should have their own opinion. They should make the followers think through, influence them with your opinions or with your principles, but not just go with the majority. So what do you think about that kind of thinking?
So I need more context to give a meaningful answer. But as I said, generally there is nothing particularly great or particularly wrong with any form of leadership. Obviously, democratic leadership is not always the best. It has its own cons. I mean, Swami, to make decisions, always did not take a vote. So, in fact, India's first Prime Minister Nehru said, democracy is the second best form of governance. The first one is yet to be found. So democracy has its problems, but I need more context to explicitly answer your question. But yes, we don't know. It's not always the right way. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. So that's all for now. We will maybe add later when we come to it. Maybe you can elaborate in the question when we have more time.
Got it. Thank you.
Else?
Yeah, thank you.
No, anything else? Any other questions?
I have one quick question. So, will you, Dr. Sanjay, also be talking about how leadership styles clash and how that clash can be a spiritual clash? So, you can have a democratic style, you can have an autocratic style, and then you can have that clash. And executives all often think that, a clash is healthy, but sometimes that clash is not really healthy. So, will you help us maybe a little later on with tips on how we can navigate situations like that as well?
In the given time, I will try my best. I will provide you a generic framework which allows you to become available to the moment to make informed decisions.
Got it.
Yeah. And when we talk of clash, the clash is never between leadership styles, the clash is always inside. And when there is inner clarity, everything becomes clear. So how we can achieve that, we will be looking at it a little later.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. So the next section, the next very famous and very popular leadership style framework was given by Paul Hersey and Kenneth Blanchard, I think in 1971. They came up with this, they called their model the model of situational leadership. And what they said basically is that leadership depends on various situations. There is no one right method. And depending on the situation, the leader must use a style. And amongst the many situational factors, they analyzed many factors, but primarily their research was focused on one factor, which is the readiness of the follower, okay, or the developmental stage of the follower. The characteristics of the followers, or what ability and what maturity, readiness, and development, the extent of development they have, that primarily determines what should be the style of your leadership. In 1977, Hersey and Blanchard went their own ways. They wanted to pursue their own independence. They were a team till then, and then after that they went their ways. So the situational leadership models, it starts to vary a little bit in what Hersey said and what Blanchard said after 1977. So try to bring out that difference in their flavor. If it becomes too complex, we can drop it, but let's give it a try. So what they said was readiness. So Hersey used to use the word readiness, and Blanchard used to use the word development of the followers. And they said readiness depends on two things: ability and willingness. Again, these are Hersey's words. Blanchard used the words competence and commitment. So it's the same thing, but small semantic differences in their approaches. So basically, they said the ability and the willingness of the followers determines their level of readiness. And what is readiness? What is ability? They called it task readiness. It's basically the subordinates' ability to deliver what's been asked of them, their skills, knowledge, and the ability, etc., to independent of leaders' guidance, to deliver independent of the leaders' guidance and support, using their own ability and skills. That's what is task readiness. The willingness, or sometimes called the psychological readiness, is basically a follower's the degree to which they are willing to take on responsibility for their actions. These include attributes like confidence, motivation, drive, and above all, self-esteem. How much faith do I have in myself and in my ability to deliver? So are you able to see the subtle difference between the two? One is simply if you have the skills and the competence and the technical ability to deliver. Even then, after having that, do you have the willingness to take responsibility and the self-confidence and the self-esteem to have faith in yourself to deliver? So this is task readiness and psychological readiness, or ability and willingness. Based on these two, on the level of the readiness of the followers, there are basically 4 stages of levels of readiness of the followers. So Hersey classified them as R1, R2, R3, and R4. R1, he said, followers who are unable and unwilling. They neither have the ability neither the willingness, right? So this is the first stage according to Hersey. R2, he said they are unable, but they are willing. R3 is they are able, but they are unwilling. R4 is they are able and willing. There's a small, again, semantic difference. Blanchard said R2 for him was D1, or his first stage was R2. Blanchard's first stage was unable but willing. So how this moves is like this. I know it's a little involved, a little complicated, so bear with me. Hersey said that when an employee joins new, for example, in an organization, he doesn't know what to do. His skills are limited. And because he doesn't know what to do, his willingness is also low, his self-esteem is very low. And then once he gets some idea of what to do, he tastes some success, so his willingness goes up, his self-esteem goes up, his faith in himself goes up, but still he is not completely has got hang of what needs to be done. He is not that experienced to be able to work independent of the supervisor, but he has willingness now because he has tasted some success. As they say, nothing succeeds like success. As the employee matures more, he gains greater and greater ability. He can now handle most tasks of his own, but there is a possibility that at this stage, she may lose the willingness or the motivation. How does that happen? Well, there are umpteen number of ways that can happen. Maybe the employee didn't get proper feedback. Maybe the employee did not get appraisal. Maybe the employee's success was not incentivized. Maybe the work environment is not free. Maybe there is systemic pressures are weighing down upon the employee, his own personal issues. So many things could make him unmotivated and unwilling, even though he may be able. The highest level is when he is able and willing. So this is R4, also D4. So Blanchard and Hersey both say this is the highest level. But in R1, R2, D2, D1, there's a small variance between how Hersey and Blanchard look at this model. Another very important thing to understand is it is not necessary that this moves in chronology, strict chronology and linearity. For example, it is not necessary that after R1, an employee will go to R2, and from there to R3, there to R4. Not necessary. An employee is unable and unwilling, and he is given the necessary expertise. He can be self-driven and directly jump to R4, skipping R2 and R3. That is very much possible. Once he has this, absolutely able, sharp, and is driven and motivated, so now he's an R4 employee. So he may simply skip R2 and R3. So it is not necessary that all of them have to go all of three, but these are the 4 stages. At different points of time in a follower's trajectory, she could be in any one of these 4 stages, and that determines what's the kind of leadership that the leader comes up with. So this is, in short, the essence of the situation leadership framework of Hersey and Blanchard. And what is the leadership? So they say the leadership itself, the nature, the style of leadership depends on 2 factors. One is the directive behavior or the task behavior, and other is the relationship behavior or the supportive behavior of the leader. The task behavior is basically, in just 3 words, concern for production. How much the leader gives importance to delivery of results, things getting done, results getting delivered, and all his energy is focused on that. Relationship behavior is simply, in 3 words, concern for people. How important it is to the leader that the follower feels supported, that she feels committed, that she feels driven, she feels comfortable, self-esteem of the followers is high. So that is relationship behavior. Okay. By varying these 2, again, there are 4 kinds of different leadership behaviors that can be the leader can exhibit. So telling, again, Hersey calls it telling, Blanchard calls it directing, right? So selling, Hersey calls it selling, and Blanchard calls it coaching, and similarly, participating is Hersey's jargon, supporting is Blanchard's jargon. So this is the model. When the employee or the follower is unable, and this is Hersey's model, he is unable and unwilling. What do you think is required? When the follower is unable, means he has no clue what to do, and obviously because of that she is unwilling, she is highly unmotivated, and the self-esteem, self-confidence is very low. At that point of time, Hersey says what's required is to simply lay out clear directions and to tell the follower, do this, do this, do this, do this. Step 1, step 2, step 2, step 3. Not much supporting behavior is required. All that the follower needs is clear, specific instructions, and the cost of failure must also be laid out. All right. So the follower simply knows what to do, follows instructions, and tastes some success. Therefore, if you can see, this relationship behavior is very low in telling style when the follower is in R1, but the task behavior where the steps are clearly laid out is very high. Once the person moves to the next stage where he is unable to do but willing. Why he became willing? Because he tasted some success. He is now unable because he's more able than before, but still he has not got the complete hang of everything. So there is still some lacunae or something missing in skill sets. This is the time when the follower is ready to be prepared to take larger responsibilities. This is the stage, like a springboard, where the follower is ready to take the leap to become a truly great team man. So at this point of time, there is high supportive behavior to ensure high self-esteem continues, and there is also high task behavior to further clarify the competence that the follower needs. As I said, it is possible that a highly able follower might slip into the quadrant 3 and may become unwilling, and at that time it's a participative style where the leader becomes very one with the team, is highly supportive, he understands their concerns, spends time with them, talks to them. It's like a very supporting behavior to raise the self-esteem of the follower, who is actually very capable but just has lost the motivation. And the highest is D4, R4, they are willing, they're highly willing, highly able. So all you need to do is delegate. You delegate authority and you just watch, just monitor from a distance if all is going well, but you really don't have to do anything much. That's the leader's dream when his team is full of R4, D4 members. And there the task behavior and the supportive behavior both are relatively lesser. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to rush through this. So these are the two different. This is on the left, what you see is Hersey's model. On the right, what you see is Blanchard's model. There are small semantic differences, but I'm sure you got the gist of it. So let's move on. Okay, because this is Dr. Sanjay Mahalingam's presentation, not Hersey Blanchard's presentation. Okay, so I would like to give you some of my reflections. So let's move on. Then another one of the world's most renowned researchers and writers on leadership is John C. Maxwell, and he has come up with this framework. And what he says is there are 5 stages of leadership. He calls it the 5 P's. These consultants love their 5 P's and the 5 D's and the 5 C's and all that. So his leadership method starts from position, permission, production, people development, and pinnacle. Position, he says, is when your followers follow you because they have to follow you, simply because of your position. People at this level, they don't have followers. I mean, they are not leaders. They're largely bosses. People who make it only to level 1, they rely on rules, regulations, policies, organization charts. Basically, they rely on that position to influence people. Nothing particularly wrong with it, but if you are only using your position all the time to make people follow you, it's a very limited way to lead. Also, such people will struggle to lead intelligent people, smart people, educated people, because they will have their own opinion, they will have their own individuality. In those situations, it will become tough for them. Level 2 is basically this position. Level 2 is permission. This is a very people-oriented stage where it's based on relationships. It's about getting to know your people. It's about creating an environment where people feel supported. Leaders find out who their people are, what do they want, and they try to build strong, solid, lasting relationships. One of the dangers of getting to the permission level is that a leader can get satisfied and stop here and stop focusing on results. And that is the third level. And that's why it's very important to go to the production level. Production level is all about results, getting results through people involvement. So good leaders don't just create a pleasant working environment, they get things done. So that's level 3 all about. That's why it's called production. At this level, leaders gain influence and credibility, and people begin to follow them because of what they have done for the organization, what they have accomplished. Work gets done, morale improves, profits go up, turnover goes down, employee turnover, that is, goes down, goals are achieved. So many positive things happen at level 3. Level 4, again, it's a very great level of leadership. It's about people development, where leaders start making others as leaders. So leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. What leaders on level 4 do? They use their position, relationships, and productivity to invest in their followers and develop them until those followers themselves become leaders in their own right. The result is reproduction, right? That is, the result is reproduction. Here, leaders reproduce themselves and create more leaders. Level 5, a very, very rare level according to John Maxwell. He calls it the pinnacle. This is extraordinarily rare, the highest and the most difficult level of leadership to achieve. For no reason is it called pinnacle. Most people can learn to climb from level 1 to 4, but level 5 requires an altogether different level of skill, intentionality, and intuition. Very gifted leaders only make it to level 5. What do level 5 leaders do? Level 5 leaders create level 4 leaders. Level 5 leaders create level 4 leaders, leaders who can create leaders. Those kind of leaders, level 5 leaders create. And these are the legendary leaders. Their legacy, their fame lives long after they have gone. There are many such examples in the corporate world, in the social world, in the political world, in the economic world. So their greatness transcends their position, their organization, sometimes the industry, and even sometimes the society and the culture that they're part of. So these are John Maxwell's 5 P's of leadership. Let me ask you a question now before we move to the next slide. So these 5 leadership, as you move along these 5 leadership, say from position to people development to finally to pinnacle, what changes? What are the different kinds of challenges a leader may face? What changes the leader may have to make within herself to move from position to pinnacle? For example, my question is, if I draw an arrow like this, what moves along with these positions? As you move along the positions, what moves within you and without you? So it's a question for you to contemplate. Any answers are welcome.
I think the first thing is the leader has to become more and more selfless.
Brilliant. So that's brilliant. In fact, the leader has to become from self-obsessed, he has to go to self-sacrifice. Perfect. So as you move higher and higher, the leader simply becomes more, it's not less and lesser about her and more about the followed. Brilliant. Anything else?
Your ability to love. The
Yeah,
more,
so self-obsession. All right.
the higher you go up, the more you're able to love. And if your love is at a level of expression which is ultimate, then all you're worried about is creating other leaders, right?
Brilliant. Very well put. Yes, it's similar to I to V. Good. Anything else? So how does this come about? What change happens within the leader for her to become from self-obsessed to self-sacrifice? If you have to say one thing that the leader starts to change within herself, what it could be?
Hi, Sairam, can I say something?
Please.
I believe there would be more organization within like the group. Like the leader has to be more organized and like more scheduled so that like they can handle like, you know, a big group of people.
So
And
right.
that's
So right.
yeah. Okay.
So it's simply more challenging. the level of challenge goes up. It is simply more and more difficult. It's very easy to throw your weight around and get things done just because you have a position. It's far more difficult to work with people. It's more challenging, and the leader has to have tremendous levels of integrity, competence, and self-awareness, an increased sense of self-awareness. And what happens with that, we'll see later. So these are some of the things, as somebody just said, the lady just said, perfectly well put. Increasing levels of challenge, a mastery of a certain level. Now, this is very important. Mastery of a certain level makes available to you all the lower levels. So one who is at a pinnacle can, when needed, also use the authority of a position to get things done. So mastery of a certain level makes to you available all the lower levels, but doesn't work the other way around. Somebody who works at a positional level does not have the other top four available to them. So that's also one of the great things about mastering a certain level. So that's about it for now. Any questions? We can pause for a few seconds now. Any questions, any clarifications, any observations, or any feedback that you want to give me? Feedback for the remaining part of the presentation, that is.
Oh, hi. I actually put a question in the chat box. I think it was after you said questions were done. So like, if you want to become a leader, like, how would you know what kind of like leader you are? Like, you know, like how your personality would affect your leadership style. Like, how would you find that out or determine that?
So what kind of leader you are, there are lots of validated questionnaires out there which has come out of empirical research. Is out there on the internet. You can download them, fill this questionnaire, and they will tell you what's your style of leadership. For example, the questionnaire is to determine at which of these 5 P's you are predominantly operating. But again, you know, to limit the scope, given the limited time, we rush. I'm not presenting all that, but there are enough ways, very validated, scientifically validated ways to find out what is your predominant style of leadership. How to move from one style to another, how to know which style to use when, to get that holistic is now, that's where we are coming to a more generic framework. Any other questions?
Can I ask one question? So can you give an example of a leader who has reached this pinnacle, like based on your thoughts?
When we say reached, you know, nobody is able to operate all the time at that level, but I have had glimpses of people who now and then touch that level of leadership, and again they fall back, but again they touch, you know. So it is possible. Name, it's hard to name, because even if I name, they'll be very well-known people, you know. If I name one, then why didn't they name other? So let's leave that. But Swami is the greatest example, actually. That is a very universal example of Swami's leadership. I will tell you 1 or 2 more stories about Swami in the next slide. Swami was truly a great leader, and even to call Swami a leader is a little demeaning. Actually, he was beyond that. So that's why I don't really give examples of Swami as leadership, because then it restricts Swami to a certain behavioral aspect of his personality alone. Swami was so much more than just what we could see. As they say in Sanskrit, alpam drishtam adrishtam brahmandam. Okay. What is seen is alpam. What is seen is very small. What is not seen, adrishtam, is brahmandam. So I would not want to reduce Swami to something like this, to say that Swami was at the pinnacle. You know, he was at the pinnacle of at various other dimensions. But I have seen people exhibit this leadership. In my very brief corporate career also, I had a very great team leader. I was just 21 years old at the time, and I was very, very impressed by what he, you know, his accommodating nature. And I wouldn't say level 4, he was probably at level 5, was probably between 4 and 3, but even that is actually quite brilliant. Jagmohan can tell you examples of level 5 leadership. Probably Ratan Tata or JRD and some of these iconic leaders, you know, who go beyond the industry, nation builders. Generations of people are inspired by them. So Tata's is a lot of examples. Probably Shashank shall be able to give you a lot of case studies in the next session, or next to next. So you could ask them if they have met, you know,
Thank you.
People of leader 5. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll move on now. Maybe we do have time for a breakout. All right. Important thing is this. This course, at least should be, even if it is not, is designed to leave the participants being leaders and exercising leadership effectively as their natural self-expression, rather than attempting to learn the characteristics, styles, and skills of leaders and then trying to remember and apply them where appropriate. For example, when you have a tricky situation with your boss, you cannot just tell him, just hold on, let me just go and quickly refer to my notes from Swami's discourses and then come back to you and tell you how I want to respond. When the tire hits the road, or when the rubber hits the road, in the moment of truth, what helps you is not what you know. Always what helps you is what you are. And this difference between knowing and being, sometimes people miss. By knowing, people think that I am now that. But knowing is not being. It is not at all being. And if you have to give a number, probably 1% is knowing and 99% is being. Even that, I'm giving you a very conservative estimate. It's more like 0.001% is knowing and 99.999% is being. So knowing is not being. And at the end of this, at least this session, you must be left slightly transformed, slightly more able to exercise leadership effectively as your natural self-expression, rather than simply, getting to know all these concepts. So that was my main purpose. And that is the purpose of the generic framework that I'm going to share with you. This is a framework I have borrowed, as I said, from certain sources, largely from a wonderful organization called Landmark Education. They do tremendous work, a very, very organization at a very high level of integrity. But it is also largely a result of my own reflections, my own contemplations and meditations over the years. I will come to that slide, but probably we do have time for a 7-minute breakout. Ritesh?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, so
you
what
can explain the breakout.
Yeah, so what's the question I'm going to leave you with is this in the breakout. You can discuss that and come out and give me your ideas. The question is simply this. If you have to simply identify just 3 to 5 or 3, 4 or 5 aspects of a person's attribute or a person's outlook or a person's way of being, or their own approach to life, that would enable them to be absolutely brilliant, powerful, and transformation leaders in life. What would those 3 or 5 things would be? Not many. And remember, these are very high level attributes. For example, there are many attributes like competence, humility, so many things. You could almost list out 50 attributes that make a good leader. What I'm talking about is those 3 or 4 large umbrella attributes, that if you have them, if you are that, then you have the entire ocean of leadership open in front of you. So what could be those 3 or 5 large umbrella high-level attributes or attributes or outlook or approach to life or way of being? And there's a reason why I'm using these phrases. What are those 3 or 5 that a person must possess to make him or her a truly great leader? So that's the exercise. So we can break out now. Let's restrict to 5 minutes. Let's restrict to 5 minutes.
Sure, we'll do that. Everyone, I'll just send you to the breakout rooms right now. Salam, everyone. Welcome back. Dr. Sanjay, over to you.
Okay. All right. So quickly, let's hear from two groups. Any 2 groups. Let me hear from Riaz Liaquat. I cannot see the person, but just I'm randomly picking up. Yes, Riaz, which breakout room?
Sorry, I'm Dr. Sanjay. I'm not sure which group I was part of, but we did have a few ideas, and that came up in our
Yes,
discussion.
let's hear them.
Yeah, a few things which came up is first, we look for a leader who is fearless, one who acts with love and compassion, one who has integrity, and one who is always willing to be selfless.
Sorry, what's the last one?
Selfless. Who is selfless?
Selfless. Okay, good, brilliant. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Lakshmi, is it? I can only say Raman. Is it? I don't know, Ramanathan or something? Possibly. Yes. Can we hear from you, ma'am?
Yeah, I think we discussed many points in our group. This is Vignesh. So some of it was, I think, carrying out the right judgment and the discriminatory skills. One is also being equal, or you can, or some of other points that came along the same lines where individual consideration, and also and other things that we discussed were decisiveness and empathetic. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. Kapil,
We had
were
a
you
list
part of any of these two groups? I mean, were you part of any of these two groups?
No, so the
right.
group was a
Go
little
on.
different. So I listed 4 or 5 that I think some of them might be overlap. So apologies if there's a little bit of repetition. The team said that one is 100% being objective, nothing emotional or personal. Second was integrity and being positive. The third was being able to act as a role model. Fourth was diplomatic. We also felt that you need to understand the audience. And I think a lot of them are basically also just spiritual attributes, the ability to love, the ability to look at success or failure the same way, and the ability to have zero ego.
Brilliant. Good. Brilliant. Zero ego. Yeah.
If there is such a thing.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone who's not part of any of these 3 groups? There were what, 4 breakup rooms in all? 4 or 5? 5. Okay. So anyone from the other 2 groups? Anybody? Okay. So this is a shy crowd. All right. That doesn't go very well with leadership, but we'll come to that later. All right. So let me present to you my framework. And what I will ask you to do later is anything any group has written, anything any group has jotted down as you think, tell me if that gets left out from this framework. It won't. And if you feel something gets left out, I will show you how it is a part of it. Okay. Of course, I don't claim that this is the greatest model, the greatest invention since bread, but it works. It's a very powerful model. It's a very powerful way to look at things. So this is the model. Quickly.
Dr. Sanjay, sorry to interrupt you, but I think you need to share your screen again, just one more time. So
okay.
Since after the breakout rooms.
Okay, all right. Yeah, can you see now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the model. There are basically 3 elements: integrity, a commitment larger than oneself, and responsibility. The thing is, I define these 3 terms in very different ways. It's not usually the definition that we understand. And the mother of all these attributes is finally self-awareness. Again, when I say self-realization, I don't mean the final self-realization that Swami talks about. We don't know what that is actually. By self-realization, I simply mean self-awareness and a deepening self-awareness. A self-awareness that is consistently deepening. That's all. There is no real goal, but it's a consistently deepening self-awareness. Aligning with it, there is integrity, commitment, and responsibility. So this slide usually takes about 6 to 8 hours of discussion when I do my workshops. Just this slide, we spend about 6 to 8 hours. and only then people get it, but we will try to do it in 10 minutes. All right, so bear with me. We'll just give you a quick view into this. This is the whole essence of my work on leadership.
Oh,
So it really takes a
I-
lot of time. Yeah.
Sorry, Ishita.
Yes.
yeah. Can I ask it or do I have to wait?
Ask. Okay.
Okay, so for the self-awareness, I'll give 2 examples. Is it like for self-awareness, do you have to like know to be self-aware, or do you have to be self-aware? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, do you like if you know you're strong, is that self-awareness, or if you are actually strong, that's self-awareness? Like, how does that work?
Okay, so let me tell you what is self-awareness, and then let us see if the question still remains, and then we'll address it then. Yeah. So
Okay.
what is self-awareness? Simply to know what you are. It's really simple. Okay. Let's keep it very, very simple. As I said, what's important is that we take away certain way of being out of this workshop, not just ideas and concepts. So what is self-awareness? Is simply, if you look at yourself, what are you? You are simply, if you start, you are the body, of course, and what Swami would say, watch your words, actions, thought, character, and heart. You go a little deeper, you are your thoughts, right? Then you are, what is left inside you is your emotions, and thoughts are of very different kind. They're random thoughts. Some of you might be thinking about right now, just random thoughts. Then there are mental states where you believe in something, that your outlook to life is certain thing, you have certain beliefs and convictions. And then there are emotions and all these things. And then there is you. Okay, you have all these things. You have your thoughts, you have your body, you have your emotions, you have your ideas, beliefs, convictions, and then there is you. Now this is where it is slightly different. When I say and then there is you, how do you know who you are, or how do you manifest to yourself? That is the key question that we have to understand, and that will lead us to integrity also. I know it is a little more involved, so try to pay attention. Let's see. So let me try to make it simple. Now inside you, you have thoughts and emotions and everything. But you are separate from all that, and how do you appear to yourself? That's the question. For example, I made a commitment that I will be available here today for this presentation, which I had to get up at 3 a.m., which is even earlier than my usual getting up time. And I was sleepy. I had to prepare for this. So yesterday I slept at 10:30, so I had only 4 hours of sleep. So I really didn't want. I was like, how can I just go to sleep, you know? And imagine Ritesh didn't know whether I will turn up or not. 5:30 p.m. is wondering, will sir come or not come, or you know. So my thoughts are, "Arey yaar, chodo yaar, let me not go for this. Let me just sleep." Emotions are, I am feeling groggy and depressed, getting up at 3 a.m. in the morning and sitting in front of my laptop screen. What else? Body is exhausted because it only had 3.5, 4 hours of sleep. So body is going in one direction, mind is going in another direction, emotion is going in another direction. And what is my direction? How do I appear to myself? In all this, what is one thing that is me? I'm open to answers. How do I appear to myself in all this, in all this collage of things that is within me? My body wants to rest. My emotion is depressed. My mind is telling, "Arey chodo yaar, kya hai?" You know. But what am I then in all this? What is the power that I have? Who am I, and how do I appear to myself in all this? That is the key thing. What is it? It is simply my word. And I want this to sink in. It is simply my word. I said I will be there, so I am here. Now this, dear friends, is the genesis of all power. That is all. It is. I am not here because I should be here. Because right and wrong keep changing. Right and wrong changes with your life stage. Right and wrong changes with who you are addressing. Right and wrong changes with culture. I am not here because I should be. I am here because I said I am here. And I honor my word, because honoring my word gives me power. That's all. There is no other reason. I am here in front of you today because I said so, because I gave you my word. Now, what is the power of living by your word? Now, that is what I call integrity. Integrity is usually understood as following certain morals, certain values, certain principles. This definition includes that also. Now, how does it include? I'm part of Sri Satsai Institute of Higher Learning. By signing on the dotted line and by signing on my employee contract, I have given my implicit word to behave in a certain way, to wear white dress to college, to be clean shaven all the time, to talk in a certain way, to laugh in a certain way, to be in a certain way. By signing on that dotted line, I have given my word that I will be such and such. So I am so and so not because that is the right way to be. I am that because I said so. So when we consistently live by our word, that is honoring our word. Now, what is this word? This word is not simply what you verbalize. Now, there is so much to integrity. Integrity is keeping your word is also about being punctual. For example, if I say I'll meet you at 5 p.m., I am not only giving you my word that I'll see you at 5 p.m. I am giving myself the word that I will be at this place at 5 p.m. So integrity is living by one's word. What is one's word? One's word is not just what you verbalize. Word is what you said. Word is also what you know you should do. What you simply know should be done. Word is also what is expected of you by those with whom we wish to have a workable relationship. Unless we have explicitly declined those unexpected requests. As a son, my mother has certain expectations from me, and I know she has certain expectations from me. So even if I haven't said it, unless I specifically say that I will not meet these expectations, all those expectations also become a part of my word. It is an implicit word I have given. What I stand for is also my word. What I say I will do is of course my word, and my moral, ethical, legal standards of the society, group and government of which I am a willing member. I am a willing member of India. I am a citizen of this country. So to obey the laws of the land is simply my word. Because I have an Indian passport, it is my word that I will obey the laws of the land. So I live by my word, honor my word. So living by one's own word. Now, why I have reduced this, it's actually not a reduction, it's actually an expansion. But when integrity is simply, because you see, when we say integrity is I will live by my values, what are those values? Don't your values change? And so what I'm trying to do here is give you a very, very workable definition. It is a very, very powerful definition. It has worked for people. A few people I know, simply living by your word is a very, like a very gold standard test to see if you have integrity or not. Right? So this is actually very close to what Swami used to say, manasekam, vachasekam, karmanyekam, mahatmana. Now what happens when you have integrity? As I said, this is a 6 to 8 hour conversation. We're trying to wrap it up in 10 minutes. You earn trust and you earn respect. People know what you are. People know what you stand for, and they will know what you do because you honor your word. Simple. What I say, I am. That's all. It's very, very simple. Such people always earn trust and respect. You have greater performance, greater satisfaction. Above all, you have a great sense of accomplishment, a great sense of completion. Now, again, I wanted to give, emphasize giving word is not only what you say. For example, I told Ritesh, I will be available at 5:30 p.m. your time for the workshop. That's my word, and I am available. But there is also something implicit. What is implicit? If I have agreed to take up the time of 30 people, it is implicit that I prepare and come fully prepared for this workshop. That is an implicitly given word. I may not have said it, but it is an expectation. It is, for example, I told you, word is also what you know to do or not to do. So I know that if I am called on to present something, implicitly I am supposed to be well prepared and give my everything. And I have given my everything. The last 2 weeks, literally I have done nothing else. I've only been meditating, contemplating and reading on leadership. I also put aside all my college work. College is reopening on the 16th of July. I have no idea what I'm going to teach my students. But that's me, as I promise. So the word has to be kept. This leads to a sense of accomplishment and a great sense of completion with everything. If you live by your word, you will always be satisfied and fulfilled. You will never feel, I could have done this, but I did not do it. Because I did whatever my word is. It gives you tremendous power at all levels. You know, integrity is such a deep thing. If you all the time live with your word, your body, your mind, your emotion will start bending to your word. Not only that, the highest level of integrity is the nature, the universe will bend to your word. So when Swami says my sankalpa is Vajra sankalpa, all that he's saying is, he's not saying he has some supernatural power. Swami never said that. He said, whatever I am, you too are. Swami's integrity was so high. I'll give you an example. One day in Vrindavan, in Trai Vrindavan is Swami's residence in Whitefield, Vrindavan. Swami was getting ready to go for darshan. So he came down from his bedroom and he was in the living room of the house of Trai Vrindavan. I was with Swami. Swami's eyes were bloodshot. Eyes were red, you know, and you could make out that something is not fine. Then I asked Swami, what happened? Are you okay? Swami said, touch my forehead. Then I kept my hand on Swami's forehead. Swami's body was boiling, you know. It must be 103 or 104 degree Fahrenheit. Swami was having high fever. And I said, Swami, what is this? How can you go for darshan? Swami said, no. I have to go for darshan. Devotees are waiting. What Swami is basically telling is, I have given my word. I have to go. I am honoring my word because I am expected to. Because I have said I will honor my word. And the beautiful thing is this, that Swami went for darshan and everything. I was sitting in that same room. I didn't go for darshan. I trust darshan went very well, and about 45-50 minutes later, Swami came back to the room. This time, I did not get a chance to touch Swami's forehead, but I could see in his eyes the redness was gone. Swami was looking more lively. Clearly, the body had healed. Clearly, something had happened, and Swami was, when he was leaving for darshan, was very down, and his energy was very low. But when he came back, you know, Swami was, his body bent to his word. He had to go for darshan. He followed his word. That is a very high level of integrity. When Swami says there will be a hospital in this place in 9 months, a super specialty hospital giving free treatment to everybody, in 9 months the hospital comes there because of such a level of integrity, the universe will bend to your word. So integrity is a very multidimensional, a very deep way to live life. But how we start is simply by honoring our word. What we say, we do, we honor it. Now, honoring means what? Always we cannot fulfill our word. Sometimes it's possible that we can't keep our word. But then honoring means you make sure you let people know that you cannot keep your word. So that's why it's honoring your word, not just keeping your word. Honoring your word is basically integrity. A commitment larger than oneself. This is another if you want to be a great leader, you have to have a commitment which is larger than our own petty needs to become rich, need to become famous. Nothing wrong with all that, but if you want to become a great leader, then a commitment larger than oneself is absolutely essential. Finally, I come to responsibility. What is responsibility? Let me ask you a quick question. Most of you must be in some form of a relationship. If not married, you must have a relationship with your mother, father, brother, sister, friend, or maybe with a partner. My question is simply this. What percentage of the relationship that you are in, what percentage is your responsibility and what percentage is the other person's responsibility? Simple arithmetic question. Any answers? Anybody? What percentage of a relationship is your responsibility and what percentage is the other person's responsibility?
Maybe 50-50%.
50-50. That makes sense. Any other answers?
Probably
Sorry?
I would say 100. 100%.
100, 200? You 100, the other person 100, 200?
No, what I mean is that, you know, you have to be complete with that person. Like, I'm married and I am, karma to my husband is equally important as him to me. So then that way it's mutually, as Swami says, it's important to have that mutual respect and understanding in a relationship.
Brilliant. So your answer is absolutely spot on, ma'am. I know I can't see you, but whoever you are, it's brilliant. And it is 100%. And that is the idea behind responsibility. So what percentage of responsibility do I have that this presentation goes well? 50% with me, 50% with you, right? That you don't run away, you pay attention. If you don't do that, obviously this presentation is not going to land on you. Whatever I do, if you don't pay attention, it's not going to work for you. Small percentage is your responsibility and what is mine. It is 100% my responsibility only. It is 0% responsibility. Now, this is very important to understand. When I say it's 100% my responsibility, I am not stating a fact. I am stating what is my stand in the matter. All I am saying is what is my stand. My stand is I take. It's a willingness. I am willing to take 100% of responsibility. Again, let us say I take 80% of responsibility. What happens with the remaining 20%? What am I left with? I take 80% responsibility that this workshop will go well. So 80% is mine. What happens with the remaining 20%? What am I left with? For that 20%, what am I left with? Any answers? 80% of how this goes well, I took complete responsibility. I am responsible. The remaining 20%, I gave you the responsibility. In that 20%, what am I left with? I am left with powerlessness, helplessness. I am probably left with the feeling of hurt. Hurt kyun? Arey, these people are anyway not paying attention. 2 weeks of my work going down the drain. I am feeling left playing the victim. Yeah, I will never going to do this. I am a victim of these people's lack of interest. Yes, do you get it? It's a stand that I am taking. If I take 80% responsibility, I have 80% power. The remaining 20% is with you. Of that 20%, I have no access to. It doesn't mean that the outcome is my 100% responsibility. Please get that. Responsibility, when I say, it does not mean blame or credit. So if this workshop goes well, I take 100% credit. If it goes wrong, I take 100% blame. No, not that. It is my stand that I put myself in that. I willingly take 100% responsibility. That means I remain the center of my attention all the time. So there is never any shifting of blame. There is never any victim mentality. There is no chance of getting hurt. Because I am responsible, I am the cause of everything that happens in my life. That if we operate from that stand, it is a very extremely powerful way to live. So this is and all this needs to be aligned finally with your self-awareness, because the more aware you become of what you are, integrity gets aligned with it. And how do you realize a commitment larger than yourself? By knowing what we truly want. If I ask you what you truly want in your life, most people won't know the answer, because what we truly want in our lives has been fed to us all the time. From television, from media, from movies. What's an ideal marriage? Well, we really don't know. We have been taught by Hollywood and Bollywood how an ideal marriage should be, for example. Right? So we don't know. So we are all the time fed with information, and we don't even know what I truly want. Because what I truly want itself has got so mixed up with all these input that I'm constantly bombarded with all the marketing and all the, the promotions and everything, that I always think this is what I want. But when I have self-awareness, when I get in touch with truly what I want, then only I can discover a commitment within myself that is larger than myself. Similarly, responsibility, integrity, all this is deeply connected with self-awareness. Self-awareness is really the mother of all that is needed to become a great leader. And self-awareness shows up as integrity, a commitment larger than oneself, and a responsibility. Responsibility is again 100%. So I am sorry, maybe this model was a little too complicated for me to complete in just 10 minutes. If there's another chance, we could do it a little more elaborately. But now I will stop. I'm out of time. So 1.5 hours is over. So if there are any questions, we can take any questions. Or Ritesh, how does it work? I've already overshot my time. So should I wind up?
No, please go ahead, Dr. Sanjay. You can go for Q&A now.
Okay, Q&A. Yeah. So please. So no questions, stupid questions. Yeah, so just shoot anything. Don't feel shy. I mean, the question need not even make sense. Because if you're asking, it makes sense to you. So take responsibility and just ask.
Salam sir, how do we fit failures into this equation? Like, for example, I have somebody and this person, I was expecting this person to complete something and it did not get done on time. So as a leader, I had the integrity to ensure that the person had all the resources, but yet eventually it did not get done. So I failed as a leader. So how do we fit that into this equation to do an effective postmortem?
Brilliant question. So firstly, in this model, the word failure does not exist in the dictionary. Okay. So brilliant question, actually. So there is only what worked and what did not work. There is no failure. You see what you thought something will work, it did not work. So now you try something else that might work. There is no failure is not a word that's there in the dictionary. That's first thing. So this is a very practical question. This person to complete integrity made all the resources available, but the team member did not deliver on time. It's a failure. What do you do? How does it fit in this model? Anybody wants to add anything to this question or attempt an answer? Otherwise, I will talk. How does this work is beautiful. So now that you have seen failure, yeah, let's not call it failure. Let us simply break down. Something did not work the way you expected it to work. So now what can you do? Now this is where I want to emphasize. This framework is not about what you do. What you do will flow out of this framework. This framework is about what you are. Okay. Now, who is responsible for this failure?
So that is the part that is confusing.
Yes. So good. So the question is not who is responsible for failure. Sorry, pardon me, the wrong question. What is the share of your responsibility in your co-worker's failure?
I would probably say 100% here. Maybe I did not choose the right person, or maybe I did not explain it correctly.
No. We are overshooting. Stay with me. What is your share? Do you really believe 100%, or are you simply saying because you know that's the right answer?
I'm just saying because I feel that's the right answer. I don't know. Yeah.
Let us say it's only 50% your responsibility. You made 50% was your part, that you made all resources available. The remaining 50% was his part. He had to turn up and deliver, right? So you have done your part. He didn't do his part. Now what are you left with? What is your power? I say PQ. What is your power quotient? There's EQ, SQ, IQ. I will say PQ. What is your power quotient now? What's the extent of your power on the way life happens around you? In this case, it is you and your coworker. That is your life. In this matter, the life is you and your coworker. The way life happens around you, what is the extent of your power? If you say, I have done my job, 50% my job over, 50% his job, he failed. Now, what's the extent of your power? You have to feel it. This is a very intuitive method. You have to feel it here. Now, to what level does your power extend? Can you get that it is only 50%? Who is the person's video on who asked the question by any chance? Can you raise your hand?
I'm here, sir. So video is on.
All right, great. So you have taken 50% responsibility of this, correct? So what do you do with the remaining 50%? What you do again is not important. How you are approaching, you're already approaching it from a sense of helplessness. What you could do, you have done your part, he didn't do his part. What do you do about it? So you're starting is from a place of helplessness, not of power. Already you are a victim. I am a victim of this fellow. I did everything. He didn't turn up. Victim. You see, so I am trying to establish the place where you must stand. Once that gets firmly established, action will simply flow. You know, the previous slide I said leadership should be your natural self-expression. Simply what you are when it flows, you are a great leader. So this is not about what you would do. First, get your place you're standing, let us get it right. So when you say it is completely my responsibility, now try to put yourself in that space, all right? What would you now do? You tell me what you would do. Your answer will be different from mine. There is no right answer. You have taken complete responsibility for your performance, your co-workers' performance, and entirely to how life happens around you. 100% is your responsibility. You've taken it willingly. Not that somebody has done your head. You have willingly taken that stand. Now tell me, how will you approach? You tell me, what would you do?
I would have a backup plan for any sort of thing.
Possibly, first you would see what could you have done better.
Okay.
You would have a heart-to-heart conversation with that person, try to find out what is not working, because now your aim is only to make this thing work. You see, now inside you there is no place for getting hurt, playing the victim, feeling inadequate. So you see, the power now is with you. Now you only want to make this thing work. No, I'm not saying it is right or wrong. You may even want to fire the person. I'm not saying it is wrong to do that. That's not the point here. The point is now all your energy is only left with you to make this work. So you will simply do what's needed to be done. Now there is no right answer as to what needs to be done. If you have self-awareness, you will be available in that moment. That is why I said being is not knowing. Now you will say, okay, should I be democratic or laissez-faire or autocratic? What should I do? That's not the way life works. When rubber hits the road, only awareness works. So if you are available, if you have integrity, and if you have taken responsibility, inside you, there is no more victim mentality, there is no more hurt, there is no more inadequacy to the situation. Responsibility means responsibility. Now you have the ability to respond, not react. And now you can take the whole thing in the situation. You may want to talk to that person, find out if there was something left from your side, what's troubling him or her, have a discussion, see if there is a way out, see how you can work it out. Clearly state your expectations of that person. If you want to give another chance, you give. If not, fire, do what you want to do. The problem is the world is all the time focusing on doing. The greatest leaders are like an iceberg. What you see is only 5%. 95% is what we don't see. And actually those 95% is all these things, these responsibility, integrity. It shows up as certain actions. So we always say, oh, this is the right way to do. But it's not about right way to do, it's about right way to be. And when we are right way to be, then automatically the right thing to be done flows from that as a natural self-expression. Did this conversation make sense to you?
Yes, sir. So, sir, address the question directly. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Do you have a counter question or anybody else any questions?
Dr. Sanjay, just a moment before you continue, I would like to make an announcement. It's actually 7 p.m. here in California. So the session has officially ended, but Dr. Sanjay has very kindly agreed to stay for a few more minutes to answer any questions that any of us may have. So please, I would request everybody to stay along and listen in, but if you can't, please feel free to, drop out of the session now. Thank you. Please go ahead, Dr. Sanjay.
To add to Ritesh, I will sit here until even one of you is left. So it's not half an hour, even if 5 hours it takes. That is my commitment. I give you my word. That's my integrity. I will sit here as long as one of you is left. So any of you is free to leave, completely free to leave. But as long as one of you is sitting here, I will also be sitting here. So any other questions? And I think, Ritesh, do you have to take feedback, right? Should I give time for that now or later?
We can go ahead and do it later, Dr. Sanjay, and then I will also follow up with all the young adults who joined today.
All right. No other questions? If there are no questions, that means you didn't get anything or you got everything.
So Dr. Sanjay, I have one question. So a
Yes.
lot of the things which you talked about are very spiritual in nature, right? And a lot of that, I think, at least I feel, that it contradicts entirely with the concept of capitalism, right? Because capitalism and the way we work and the organizations we work forces us to do it quick, do it fast, get the result. And you can live up to your word, right? As you were saying, rightly saying, and that's extremely powerful. But you encounter individuals who don't allow you to live up to your word, right? Whose entire objective is to make sure that you fall, right? So how do you reconcile that? If you're in an environment where you're in control and you're not, dictating the results and the dates, you're defining everything easier. But if there's a broader sort of environment that you're in, which is forcing you that results have to come by X date, things have to happen by Y, and by being in that, you are being less true to your word, right? And I like the way you answered the question earlier as well, that there is no clash. The clash is internal, is what you said. Could you talk a little bit more about that? How do you see like two leadership styles, an autocratic leader, a democratic leader, right? Clashing. And it's a clash in which only one can survive, right? How does that become an internal struggle?
Okay, so you are, let us say you're in an organization which, let us say, does not match with your values, right? And you are saying you're not able to keep your word. Well, nothing can prevent you from keeping your word except yourself. That's the first thing you need to get it. Okay? Nothing can prevent you from keeping your own word. It's not about keeping your word. It's about honoring your word. Right? It's about honoring your word. For example, it's quite possible that you cannot keep your word sometimes. So see, for example, it's about this. It depends how big a game you want to play. All right? How big a game you want to take upon yourself to play is a question that you want to answer to yourself. So, for example, you could say, I will change the socio-economic situation of USA. Why not? There were leaders who did it. There were presidents who did it. There were people like Martin Luther King Jr. who did it to the extent they could. So, do you want to take that bigger game? You can take that bigger game. Bigger the game you take, more often you will not be able to keep your word. But you always have to honor your word. Now, about this feeling that I am in a situation where I am not able to keep my word, already you have transferred some of your responsibility to the situation. Now you are no more the cause, you are the effect. Actually, as I said, this is a very involved conversation, but responsibility means being the cause, not the effect. You are being the cause of your life, not the effect of what happens around you. So the moment you said, I cannot do this, already you stand in yourself, inside yourself, you've already given a lot of your power and your responsibility to the situation in which you find yourself. So you will have to first take that power back, and you will have, it is not easy because the mind loves to play victim. See, what in your statement, you're trying to play victim. If I can be really brutally honest, you're saying, what can I do? I am in this situation. This is the best I can do. So the best you can do is the extent of your power. What you have left out of a responsibility is loss of your power. That's all. Nothing can be done about it. It's not right or wrong. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I am simply stating what is. So to the extent you have taken responsibility, that much power you have. To the extent you have given up the responsibility is the extent of your loss of power. So first thing is, you have to say, you have to of course have self-awareness, and first question is, what is truly important to me? You have to clarify your word. What is expected of me? What am I supposed to do? What is my word? See, now the thing is, by being a part of this organization, you already given your word. You have given your word to be the way you're expected to be. So with deepening self-awareness comes tremendous courage. And when you know, it works magically. Actually, this model is such a magical model. If you really get it and follow it, everything starts to reorient itself to give you more power. So when you are deeply self-aware and you deeply and with tremendous clarity, you know, this is exactly what I want. And then you give your word to live by that and take responsibility completely to whatever happens. You will see actually how magically your situation changes. Maybe your boss might change, your company might change. As I said, the ultimate level of integrity is when nature bends to help you keep your word. And it is not something that is very esoteric. We saw it in Swami. And Swami always said, whatever is in me is in you. Right? He never put himself at a higher pedestal and said, no, like, so it's all in us. It's just because we live such powerless lives. How do we live powerless lives? By not having self-awareness, by not having integrity, and by not taking 100% responsibility and a commitment to a cause larger than ourselves. So with this, we lose power, and then all these confusions, and then we suddenly find ourselves helpless. I completely get your question. Even I face it. You know, I face it. In my organization also, it's not always things happen the way I think they should happen. There are a lot of conflicts. You know, like, what do I do? And this, you know, it's way of life. But the way to stand, the stand you must take is, I take complete responsibility. For example, if you have a problem with your boss is asking you to behave in an unethical manner, the first instinct is to blame the boss, right? Oh, something's wrong with you. What can I do? Well, you have given you have not taken responsibility. What it means that not that you are responsible. Please get the subtle nuance. You are not responsible. You willingly take responsibility. And then when the moment you do that, you will see something inside you changes, and you will simply know what to do. As long as you take complete responsibility, your inside your energies work in such a way that you simply know what to do. So that's all I can say. So it's not about, I cannot give you an answer, this is what you should do, but if you become clear about your stand, and everything flows from there.
Thank you.
And life is spiritual. We are spirits having a human experience. So there is nothing non-spiritual or spiritual. Everything is spiritual. Yeah. Any other questions?
Saram, I had a question. So often, I know when we're reading up in sociology, they say that when you do take up 100% of the responsibility, often you translate that into a very high internal level of internal sense of locus. How one of the downfalls of that they talk about is that you often can beat yourself down if it doesn't go the right way and you take on that responsibility. What is the fine line, and how do you prevent that from occurring, so that while you are kind of being aware and analyzing what could have been better, and just trying to work on self-growth, how do you ensure that it's positive instead of negative?
Okay, very good question, and very important to get this. When I say responsibility, let me clarify what responsibility is not. Very important. And responsibility is not fault, blame, shame, guilt, burden, obligation, credit, or praise. I will repeat, responsibility is not blame, shame, guilt, burden, obligation, credit, or praise. It is a place to stand. Get this very clear. You are not blaming yourself for the situation or the failure. You can only be inside yourself in your stand. What is a stand? Suppose you say to a person, I love you. What is the stand you are taking? You are simply placing yourself, you are committing that I love you. It's only a stand. Right? Mind makes it a burden. But so what I'm saying is responsibility is a stand. You choose to be willingly the cause in your life rather than be the effect. Right? You could be the effect also, just simply you won't have power. Now what happens when you are the cause? Cause, when you say I am the cause of what happens in my life, it doesn't mean that I am to blame for what happens in my life. It only means that I take a stand where whatever happens in my life, I will not play the victim, or I will not be the effect, or I will not, it doesn't mean that you cannot see what others can do better. You can still see what others can do better, but your motivation is only to make this work. For example, if you're with your partner and you have got a problem with your partner, one way is blame. I have done my part. You're not. This is how fights happen. If you see all the time, I have done my part, you didn't do yours. Right? I wish you on your birthday, you didn't give me a rose on Valentine's Day. I did my part, you didn't do your part. This is the genesis of all conflict in the world. When you take responsibility, what it means is simply your motivation, your whole energy is focused on how to make this work. That's all. You may still, you may still walk away. That's also fine. That the problem is not what is to be done, but there is no place inside yourself for playing the victim or to blame you or anybody else. You're only looking how to make this thing work. That power you will get only when you take the stand of complete responsibility. It's nothing to do with, I am not saying you are responsible. Nobody is responsible. I'm just taking what is your stand. That's all. It's just your stand. You're willingly taking that stand that I take complete responsibility. That gives you complete power. And with complete power, you make the right decisions. That is all. Powerful decisions. Again, there is no right decision. You simply make powerful decisions. And you carry it out with integrity. Because you honor your word. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Anything else?
Sir, I have a question. Swami says give 100% anything that we do, right? And as our leaders in any organization, we are expected to do that 100%. But sometimes, even though we do give that 100%, what happens is there's some sort of mishappenings, or like with even a co-worker, we might have issues. How would you see, and I saw one picture where Swami is communicating with the other person, and that is also that person is also, we need to visualize as Swami. It's we are able to do that at times in the organization, Satyasai organization, but when it comes to our own work, how do we have that, keep that mindset even in anything, that whatever may come, but the person we are communicating to as a leader is also a spiritual being on the other side? How do we keep our whole mindset in that equilibrium?
Okay. So do you want to be a little specific? Is it, you want to be, or you don't want to?
It'll
be more specific in your question, like exactly in a certain situation that you faced or something like that, or is it a more general question?
For example,
No,
I work for state hearings. So I work with the judges, and sometimes, you know, they come from an authoritative perspective. And when they come with that authoritative perspective, no matter how much we put in for any of the hearings we do, sometimes, you know, it's just negated, or they look at you with that sort of a, like they come with that mindset. So even though when I'm talking to the judge, I do get my whole, you know, myself, I'll get very like, oh my God, why is this happening, Swami? I'll think to myself like that. So how do I keep that one mindset to be fearless, and to even to talk to them in that angle? That's what I'm asking. Not at an authoritative perspective, no, to have that mindset.
I get it. With self-awareness comes fearlessness. Simply when you know who you are, that's the genesis of all fearlessness and courage. But again, so what is your word? Do you know what is your word? In your job, what is your word? You have to first clarify that to yourself. What is the word you have given, explicitly or implicitly? What is your word? This is what happens. So our word is something. We are not even aware of what is our word all the time. We are not aware of it. What is our word? So you see, when I signed on the employee contract of SSSIHL, I gave my word. So if I don't want to keep my word, I should leave this organization. There's nothing wrong in it. I may leave also someday. Who knows what's in store in future? That's not the point. But what is your word? You have to clarify to yourself, what is your stand? So until you know what is your word, you will never have integrity. Otherwise, this is what happens. That is why this model is so powerful, and the definition of integrity as keeping your word is so powerful, because, you know, otherwise all these things is that our word is something, our values are something, our ideas of how things should be is something, our ideas of how people should behave is something, and there's all hodgepodge inside, and there's all conflict, and we don't know what's our stand, because we don't know what is our word. So the first thing is, what is your word? When you go to work, what is your word? You know, so you have to discover it. Your word simply could be, I will make my boss right. It can be that I will play by the rules of the game of this organization. It can be your word. So it depends on what is your word. That's the first thing. Second thing is, once you have given your word, you carry it out with integrity and you take responsibility. So you see, the moment you say this judge is so authoritarian and he is not listening to my suggestions, so now already you are implicitly suggesting, I am doing my best, but he is not keeping his side of the bargain. Am I right? And you have lost 50% of power because 50% responsibility you gave to him. The other approach, you take a stand where I am responsible entirely for what I am causing in my life. I refuse to be the effect of my life. I am the cause of my life. So now you would say, I am causing this conversation that I'm having with this judge. I am causing it. It's a stand, not that you are actually causing it. You take a stand, so that gives you power. Now what do? You would say, why, so now you're only trying to make it work. Now you have no complaint. Do you get it? When the important thing to understand is this: when you take 100% responsibility, you have 0% complaint. It's a pie chart. You know, it's a circle. If 70% responsibility means 30% is only complaints and grievances and victim mentality. If there is 90% responsibility, 10% is complaint. If there is 0% responsibility, some people, for them, the whole world is wrong. Everything in the world is horrible. That is 0% responsibility, 100% complaint. So now if you take 100% responsibility of the situation, what do you really do? What's your approach? I cannot say what you should do, but you will know what to do. Because now in your head, there is no space for complaint. Your being is filled only with the feeling, how do I make this work? The answer could also be, don't give any suggestions. Just keep your calm and just do what needs to be done. That also could be an answer, right? But now your energies are not busy complaining. Your energies are only looking to make things work. And now you just say, so is there a way I communicate? Can I look at myself? So you'll have deepen yourself. As I say, self-awareness is the whole thing. Ultimately, can I deepen my self-awareness? As you become more aware of yourself, you'll also become more aware of the functioning of the other person. The deeper you have your awareness of yourself, the deeper will be your awareness of the functioning of every person on this planet. So you will know what is the judge's motivation, from where is he coming, what is his insecurity. So with that, automatically you begin to respond in a way, and the whole situation starts to rise to a newer level. But the first step for it is you have to take responsibility. Because what you don't take responsibility for, all you're left with is complaints, grievances, victimhood, and lack of power. So that's the advice I will give you, not that what you should do. For that, we'll have to speak for 2-3 hours one-on-one. But the stand that you must take is one of responsibility.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Not sure if
Any
there's
other question?
not sure if there's a question, but from others, but I can go next. So that was really very powerful. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. So one question I have is, there are all of these responsibilities that we sign up for, right? Like personal aspect, like to the organization, at work, to health, like, you know, you need to balance all of it, and you have, you know, committed yourself to all of this. But it's not always possible to do everything perfectly, to, like, you know, to the level that you want to actually be. So how do we, I mean, I don't know if the question is how to balance it, or like how do we approach it, like how do we not beat ourselves up and also feel like that powerful, like not feel like we are giving up that power?
Brilliant question. Madhu, right?
Yes.
Brilliant question. So see this, when you have deep integrity, you will be careful before you give your word. We simply throw our word because we don't honor it. So first thing, this is not the complete answer to your question. The first thing, when we truly honor our word, we will give it with care. Whatever we cherish, we give out with care. You know, you will first of all be careful in giving your word. You will not simply give it to anybody for anything. You will not tell 1,000 people, I love you, I love you. No, because it's a word. It's a very deep word. You honor your word, right? So you honor it, you give it carefully. That's the first thing. Beautiful question. We have given our word to so many things. You know, as a daughter, I don't know if you're married, or maybe as a wife, as a sister, as a friend, as an employee, as a member of the country, as a citizen, as a member of a community, society, as a member of SAI organization. So many words we have given willingly. Now the thing is this, the bigger the game you choose to play, more often you will fail to keep your word. This is natural. If you sit at your home, you know, don't talk to anybody, just you have 2 people in your life, then obviously you will mostly all the time be keeping your word. But you want to play a big game. You say, like Swami said when he was 14 years, I will change this, I will bring in the golden age. Look at a boy, 16-year-old, illiterate, almost semi-literate, wearing a khaki shorts in a rural town, you know, stones away from Stone Age. He says, I will bring the golden age. It's a big game Swami took on. So there will be challenges. So bigger the game you take on, the more often you will not be able to keep your word. So that's why I said integrity is not about keeping your word. It's about honoring your word. So when you're not able to keep your word, what you do so that you don't lose power? That is your question. So what do you do when you're not able to keep your word? You let the stakeholders know that I know this is expected of me. I have given my word, but I am sorry that I am not able to keep my word. And then you clean up your mess. Whatever you not keeping your word has created, you do your best to clean it up. So for example, you have given your word to be a good daughter. Implicitly, I said word is not only what you verbalize, but also what is expected of you, and what you know you should do is also your word. So you know that you should be in such way as a good daughter, and if you feel sometimes you have not been able to keep your word, you could still honor your word by acknowledging that you did not keep your word. Telling your mother, I know this is what is expected of me. I'm sorry I could not do this. I will do it next time, by acknowledging it, by transparently owning up to the absence of integrity and not blaming anybody else, because then you're giving away responsibility, right? So that is the way you retain power even when you cannot keep your word. See what happens, for example, I will tell you. So suppose I speak rudely to my mom. I have not kept my word. As a son, I am expected to be polite to my mom, even in my disagreement with her. But now what happens the moment I lose my temper? What the first instinct I say? No, that's because you spoke to me like that. You're never listening to me. What have I done? I have given a reason for the loss of my integrity. I did not keep my word. One, that is the first thing. Now, after that, what I have done, I have given the responsibility of me not keeping my word to the other person. I did not keep my word because you are like this. Now, that is absence of integrity. So when you look at integrity and responsibility together, what do you say? I did not keep my word because I did not keep my word. There is nobody else to blame, because I take complete responsibility. I was not a good son because I was not a good son. There is no you. I keep my word not because of the way you are. I keep my word because I am a man of integrity and I keep my word. I keep my word because I keep my word. I don't keep my word based on how you are, then it is not my word. Then I am not the cause, I am the effect. I am causing my life. And when I fail to cause my life, I take responsibility of it, and I don't shift responsibility. I acknowledge the loss of integrity. I openly, transparently acknowledge, I am sorry, I was not a good son. I shouldn't have spoken like that. I am sorry, I did that because I did that, not because of anything else. And then the power is again yours. Power not over somebody else, your power over yourself, because you've taken complete responsibility. Again you fail next time, again you take responsibility. This is a never-ending process. It is a summit without a peak. There is no goal, there is nowhere to reach. You simply become more and more powerful with greater and greater integrity and responsibility. That's all.
Got it. Thank
Makes
you.
sense, Madhu? Okay.
Yeah, it totally does. But again, there is a follow-up question on that, which would be, if we keep doing that, taking responsibility for something that you've done, then that becomes like a new normal, and that loses its value too after a certain point, right? Like you can't. Yeah.
Good point. So, for example, you give me $100, and I say I will return it to you in 3 days, right? And now it's been 3 months and I haven't given to you, and you are like, what the hell, is you going to give it back or not? Then you remind me, brother, you owe me $100. I said, oh, so sorry, I'm just giving you in 3 days. Again, there is 3 months, right? The next time you won't lend me money at all. So the point is, again and again, if you go to the same path, yes, if you consistently don't keep your word, then your word loses value. You do lose other people's trust and respect. But what do you do about it then? You just keep your word then. You won't gain respect by giving responsibility also, no. There's no way. So it is not easy to live a life of power, Madhu. It is not easy. It is not easy. It is very easy to live the kind of lives all of us are living. All of us, including me. It's very easy. All the time shifting blame. What I can do, I will do. I have done my part. The administration of the university is like this. I have done my part. It is all wrong with the capitalist system of US economy. What can I do? I have done my part. My wife is like this. She has to transform herself. Only then the relationship will work. What can I do? We all live like that. All of us live like that. To live a life of power, to hold yourself to your word, and to take 100% responsibility, and to be self-aware deeply. This is a very powerful way to live, and it is not easy. It's not easy.
Dr. Sanjay, these are really, really powerful words. I just want to repeat one thing you said, that honoring your word is not keeping your word, right? Which is resonating with me a lot. But the question I have for you is your word, right? In the context of an organization, right? I work for an IT giant, I work for a hospital, I work for the government sector, whatever it might be. I work for an organization. Should my word be something related to that organization, that I have to deliver results to my customers, I have to meet, or should it be something which is deeply personal and spiritual, which is I will always treat people with respect, I will not raise my tone, like things like that? Or is it, do you think finding your word in an organization is a combination of your personal side, your spiritual side, and also the organizational? Because it's almost like a mission statement of an organization, right? What you're basically saying is, instead of an organization having a mission statement, what is your mission statement? Who are you? What is your word? So I guess my question is that word just technical in your mind? Is it a blend of a few different things? How do we find our word?
Brilliant. Finding your word comes to self-awareness. It's a beautiful question. It's not easy to know what exactly is the word you have given. Oftentimes you don't know what is my word. So, in my analysis, there are 6 kinds of words. Word 1 is what you simply say and verbalize. That's the easy part. Word 2 is what you know to do or not to do. Almost always, if you see, we do know what is to be done and what is not to be done. The third word is what is expected of you by those with whom you wish to have a workable relationship, unless you have explicitly declined those unexpressed requests. Word 4 is simply whatever you assert is true. That's your 4th word. 5th word is what you stand for, and the 6th word is the moral, ethical, and legal standards that you hold yourself accountable to, because you're a member of an organization, society, or a country. So your word is a very multi-layered in many things. So if you are really very clear and you take complete responsibility, rarely your words will clash. It's actually rare. You can, just to take a question, satisfying customers is the best way to give profits to your company. Right? How else the only in your entire value chain, the only person who gets external funds to your company is your customer. Right? That's all. Everything else is only circulation of the same fund. So there need not be a very great problem, but in situations where there's a problem, so if you give me a clear situation instead of a general, this is what happened and this is how I'm trying to deal and what do I do now, then maybe we can help you to clarify your stand. But since your question is very general,
I'm happy to give you a little bit of example. What I didn't want to do is drag the whole group through it as well. That would be insensitive of me. So, I'll pause for other questions, and if you're still up for a bit, then maybe I can bug you again.
You will have to see that with your boss, what is the word that you stand for with your boss? That's all you have to say. So you could say, for example, my word to my boss is I stand for the success of my boss. That's my word, and I have told this to my boss. I have told my stand, sir, with you, my word is I stand for your success. Now, what does that mean? It also means that if I feel my boss is going, off on a wrong trajectory and is going to harm himself, it is my duty to let him know that I think this is not the right way. Maybe you should reconsider, because it is a part of my word that I stand for his well-being. And now I deliver my work on time so that my boss can deliver his work on time to his boss and my boss can succeed. That's my word I give to my boss. So it's already a commitment to me larger than myself. I'm not looking for my success. My word to my boss only. This is not the same word to my wife or to Swami. I have a different word that I have given to Swami, where I try to carry it with integrity. But my word to my boss is I stand for your success. Which means when he makes extra demands on my time, I do it because I have given my word. For your success, I do it. Now, integrity means you have to give up a lot of things. You cannot have it all. For example, I need my leisure time, I need my 8 hours of entertainment a day, then you cannot keep your word to your boss. Keeping your word will ask for sacrifices. Power will need sacrifice. Power does not come without sacrifice. So when you say, I will keep my word to my boss, you should know what is your word to your boss. Even if you don't communicate to him or her, you know what is your word to boss. When you live by that, as I said, what are the side effects of integrity? You earn your boss's trust. You earn your boss's respect. You earn his love. You earn the admiration of your co-workers, and there is a high likelihood that you will also succeed in your corporate career, that you will have fast promotions. There's a high likelihood, but that is not your word. Your word is, I work for the success of my boss. This is my word. It did not be your word, but with self-awareness, once you clarify your word, you carry it out, and don't be under the mistaken notion that it's going to be easy. Carrying out your word will lead you to ignore your own demands. It will lead you to ignore your body, your mind, your emotions, because your word is you. You are your word. Tell me, what else are you other than your word? So, for example, there's also a word that I give to myself. For example, my word to myself is, I get up at 3:30 a.m. Sunshine or rain, Sunday or Monday, 365 days a year, I get up at 3:30 a.m. and do some things, which is a word that I have given to myself. So many days my body is not willing to get up. Now, of course, because of integrity, now my body has started to bend to my word. And now I don't even, so that is integrity. I said body will bend. Now I don't need an alarm. For a few years, I was needing an alarm. Now I don't need an alarm. Absolutely whatever happens, between 3:25 and 3:35, my body will wake up. Because my body has now learned to bend to my word. And there's so many days I don't want to get up. I just want to sleep. But word. So keeping word is not easy. It is a constant challenge and a sacrifice. But how do you clarify your word? Through self-awareness. So sitting with yourself and knowing, what is my stand now with my boss in this relationship? What is my, but you can do that only when you take responsibility. The moment you are in a space of complaining, oh, my boss is such a bad human being. What stand should I have for him? My stand is, let me see how can I put him down. So when you are taking responsibility and self-awareness, you will know what is your word and you carry it out with power. So it's all linked. It's one entire model. Everything supports everything else. I hope that made sense, Kapil.
No, it did. I think you answered the question, because what you clarified is, I work in an organization, Dr. Sanjay, which is pretty big. So at one time, I have about 15 different bosses. And I think what your answer clarified was that I have given my word to my real boss, the guy that controls my bonus. But these new bosses that I get, I haven't clarified my word. And if I had, I would have probably been in a better situation. So that's very helpful, sir.
Right.
Thank you, Kapil. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. I mean, I really think that you've given us your word that you will stay here until only one of us is left. But we've also given you our word that, this would have only taken you an hour and a half, and you already have gone way past that. So we'll definitely really appreciate your time. And we'd like to conclude the session now. And just in that moment. So, Dr. Sanjay, personally, I just learned phenomenal number of things in today's talk. I really have no words to thank you, because the clarity that you've provided is just amazing. Personally, I've just taken up a leadership role at work where I need to motivate some members of my team who fall into the various buckets that you just mentioned, R1, R2, R3, and R4. And I just don't know how to deal with anybody who's not an R4, right? So just having this framework that you had given us, and how being leaders helps us to go from the I to we, and causes an increase in self-awareness, and finally promotes self-sacrifice because of the larger commitment. That was very it really resonated with me and how I understood everything. Thank you so much for your time, and really appreciate you being here with us. And I really also want to add that I really started interacting with you just a couple of weeks ago for this program. And every single interaction of mine, you stood for something, the way you carried yourself, the way you would commit to something and say that you will do this, and then you do it. It just drove so much of the points that you made today home that it really inspired me a lot. Thank you so much. And with that, I would like to now request everyone for your feedback. Please do take a few moments to give us your feedback so that we can improve the course for future iterations of it. And Dr. Sanjay, I really think that we will probably want you back at some point. There are so many unanswered questions. And as you said, it takes you 8 hours for your model. And we would really like to take you up on your kindness and have you back at some point soon. I think one of our colleagues will also share this link with you all on the chat for the sake of time, I'm going to go on to the next section, which is to just briefly describe what's coming up next. So far, we've had 2 beautiful sessions on leadership. The third session will continue this work, and it will be Dr. Sundar Iyer next week giving us a talk on values-driven leadership. The workshop will be on Saturday, July 18th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. If you haven't registered yet, please do register, and the link is tinyurl.com/ELWS-register. If you have any other questions, please do contact us. Please note the change in email address. It is now elws.sio@gmail.com. Additionally, I think all the young adults here know one of Kshitij, Madhu, Rishma, or myself. Please feel free to contact us at any time. And now we'll just end with Om and Three Shantis. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating, and we'll see you again next week for the next session. Sai Ram. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay.